Well, thank you for joining us today. I am thrilled to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity provided by Dexter Community Schools. I'm here as a resource, so I can share my contact information. If you ever have any questions, you can absolutely feel free to email me. I'll do my best to respond to that. So a little bit about myself, just so you understand what my background is. I like technology. I'm a senior solution engineer at SentinelOne. So my focus is on technology for SentinelOne. SentinelOne is one of the top 3 cybersecurity companies in the world. It's us, CrowdStrike, and Microsoft at this point. I'm also a SANS instructor, which is an organization dedicated to certifying and training professionals around the world. And this includes our own government. I just taught a class to the Marines. I'm actually heading to Estonia to teach. They're standing up a civilian cyber reserve corps, which I think is fantastic. I hope that program works well. Maybe we copy it here, at least in Michigan. Our cyber team here in Michigan is actually pretty amazing. It's a lot of people don't realize, but the Michigan assets around Michigan National Guard and all of our cyber assets around the state, we're actually in the top tier of all of the states. So we're in one of the more safer havens cyber-wise, but still, right, there are limits to that. I also teach at the University of Michigan. I like taking tests. I did graduate from University of Michigan. I also graduated from Michigan State with an MBA. I spent 12 years doing Cold War military intelligence, specializing in Soviet order of battle. That was back when the Russians were the bad guys. We'll just leave it that way. Yeah, they're still the bad guys. 25 years in IT security, and we're going to peg that. That's never going to change at this point. And an avid skier. I love to ski. I do design tabletop games and have published. And I used to be a traveling clown. I highly recommend, if you ever have an opportunity to travel Europe as a clown, you should. All right, so let's get into it. So one of the things I wanted to show you today, and I'm probably going to drop out of the presentation a little bit because I don't want to just talk to you folks. I want to answer your questions and help you out as much as I can. There's a lot of material that I went and presented to all of the schools. So I went to Creekside, I went to Mill Creek, and I went to the high school, and I basically spoke to every 5th grader through every 10th grader and covering a lot of the same material. Obviously, 5th graders' engagement with the material is different than the engagement that we would see in the high school. What I've also seen, this is the second year that we've done this, but the first year that I've been able to cover almost all of the schools. And there's definitely a higher level of engagement with smaller classes. At the high school, we did we were in the CPA and had the freshman class as one unit and the sophomore class as another unit. That worked okay, but that's very present-y. It's not as much interaction, and students, of course, I was able to get participation from the students, which is super fun. But I know it's difficult in that large size, and you have the distance between individuals in the stage. So all of that being said, I definitely think we had an impact. I do believe that in the future, we need to figure out how to make more time for this. And maybe, something that I was actually talking to the library about, because I also do this at the library every October. And again, it's still not enough time, is that maybe we break it down on like at least a semester basis or a quarter by quarter basis. And we just focus on one topic at a time. Because there's really only a couple of things that we really need to focus on, which is password management, identity and privacy, and then responsible use of social media, right? Those are really the 3 items that matter the most, I think. But even that, covering all that in a single session is really, really challenging. So I'm gonna drop out here for a moment and just highlight all of the material that we have, right? It's about 60 slides. And even if you just did the math, right, that's a slide a minute if you were doing an hour. And, you know, at best, we have 40, 45 minutes with the kids. That being said, what I was able to cover, we had a lengthy conversation around what it means to be cyber safe. We had a lengthy conversation around the positive aspects as well as, you know, some of the risks associated with being online, right? How that can impact money, right? Both their individual money, but also asking them to recognize that they're in a household with other folks that use the same network, possibly use the same computer. So their actions could result in someone else losing money, right? So we need to be mindful about our security because of that. And then we talked about identities and online privacy, right? Emphasizing that if you put something out there, it's going to be out there. You lose control of it. Even if you share it in confidence, like if you, like within your Snapchat circle where you have destructive messages, it still doesn't prevent someone from taking a screenshot of what you post. And once you've digitized that, it's out there, it's there forever, and you are no longer in control over the image that you present and any confidences that you have shared. So we talk about identity and privacy, and then we talk about the things that you could encounter, right? If we're not safe online, if we're not conscientious about it, that this could force you to read and experience material that makes you feel bad, that makes you feel confused, and you know, we want to avoid that as much as possible. I touched a little bit of cyberbullying, but dealing with cyberbullying is a huge challenge and almost a full topic in itself. So one of the ways that I approach with cyberbullying is understanding that as part of our online reputation and our online privacy, we want to make sure that we're putting positive messages out into the world, and we don't want to inadvertently bully someone. So we lose a lot of the communication cues that we have when we're in person, and unfortunately, that can present a lot of challenges, right? And something that you might have said as a joke could actually be harmful. And so just trying to keep yourselves out of that situation, right? So then we talk about some of the do's. What are the best things that we can do online? And so then we talk about password and password hygiene and the rules to follow around password hygiene. This super popular. Kids absolutely love it. And I'm going to show you why, right? As we jump in, I've got some resources here that I can share. Some of the materials that I use for the library, the Stay Safe Online, really has a fantastic walkthrough of online safety basics and kind of covers all of the things, right? Keep a clean machine, create long passwords, password manager. So this is a great start. And also things like, let me see if I can get this to hover right. There we go. This site also talks to you about theft, fraud, and cybercrime. So what happens when something happens to you, right? And that's really what we see here. What do you do? Travel tips, hacked accounts, what to do, phishing. So there's just some really good resources here. I highly recommend that. I'm going to go ahead and copy this and guess there's no open queues. If I put this in, they won't see it in chat. I'll post it out there. Maybe they can't chat, but they can at least see it. So there you go. All right, so now let's talk about why passwords were so popular. So one of the things that we talked about when we talk about passwords is understanding that some passwords are actually more important than others, and to get them to tell me what the most important password is. And every class, even down to 5th grade, you know, they get it. And that's their email. That's what we call a capstone account. And the reason for this is if I hack your email, I can basically own any account that you have, because every site that you're going to visit, you're going to register, and it's going to use your email essentially as your identity. And so if I get in, if I hack your email, then I can reset any password that you have, because all of those forgot password links are going to trigger a password reset back to your mailbox. I say, well, I gave them all homework, and I said, when you get home, talk to your parent, talk to your trusted adult, and say, hey, I need to change my email password. I want to make it stronger. Mr. Harsh told me a really good method for creating it. So one of the things I walk them through is I have them give me a password. And so, of course, the first one that they throw out there is password. And I say, you can see here, that would take me as a hacker like no time to crack your password. And then, of course, inevitably, they say, well, do an uppercase and change the A to an @ sign, right? And change the O to a 0, and then add an exclamation point. And you can see that like none of those tricks actually work. Like, even though that's not a word, right? Hackers know all these, substitutions and things like that. And notice that this is a 9-character password. Now, if we actually take this and make this truly random, even 9 characters, oh, we got to get an uppercase character in there, right? Now we're looking at a password that's 6 months. Now that's 6 months on a single computer. That is not what we call a hacking rig. And trust me, they are absolutely out there. You hear all about, the power that crypto systems, cryptocurrency systems are drawing. That's the type of computational array, computational hardware that hacking organizations can throw at these passwords. So this 6-month password, more realistically, is about 1/100th of that. Okay, so you're probably sitting there going, great. Shane just told me all of my passwords are weak. Yes, that's probably true. And if it's not, good for you, right? So I said, all right, this is great. We understand that, weak passwords are a problem. What does it take to make a strong password? And interestingly enough, and I tell them this story, when the government came up with password guidelines, the 8 characters upper lower number, that was in the 70s. That documentation that specifies that is what we call a RFC, and the RFC is still out there, and you can go read it, and it's based on modem speed in the 70s. Now, I don't know if you were using the internet in the 70s, but trust me, the internet was slow. And so all of their calculations are based on that. That's no longer practically real or practically secure. So in 2016, the government changed the standards and said 16-character passwords or longer. How many websites enforce that? Almost none. Right. So even though 7 years ago, the government recognized this was weak, changed the national standard, we still have websites that aren't doing it. Now, we're going to talk about what changes are afoot with passkeys and everything like that. But until that happens, and that'll probably realistically be a 1 to 2 year transition, we still need to manage passwords. So what is a good password? Think of a number. I'm just going to go 345, right? That's not a great password. I put a dash. Give me a, 3 here's a great word, elite, right? All right, now we're getting better. I'll put another dash. And then I'm going to take a ball and play, right? So now 345 elite ball play takes 12,000 years to crack. If we added one more word, we're now to 6 billion years. Now that's a 25-character password. It's upper and lowercase. It has a number and it has a dash. And the kids just absolutely loved it because it really gave them something, a way that they could approach this, right? It gave them a heuristic or an algorithm that they could apply on their own in a very, very easy fashion. So they can, 1982 dash dog boy cat, right? That's a fantastic password and super easy to remember. And then the formatting I keep consistent. Uppercase on the first letters, lowercase everywhere else. I use dashes. If you went to a website that doesn't allow dashes, replace the dashes with an underscore. replace the dashes with a dot. Like there's going to be a special character that you can insert, a hashtag, an @ sign, right? 1982 @dog, right? That's fine. Just following that pattern of number, special character, simple word, special character, simple word, special character, simple word. So they love this. They wanted to do nothing but play with Password Monster for hours. Probably not hours, but definitely the entire time as soon as I pulled this up, everybody's just like, try this. Well, how about this? No, I think this is good. So it was really engaging for them to see how the math worked. One of the classes did ask why. And unfortunately, I'd really need a whiteboard to illustrate it, but I did talk them through why, and they liked the answer. So we did cover that, which is basically what we call key space. So the concept of key space is how many characters do you have to guess? If we do just lowercase, how many letters in the alphabet? 26, right? Now, if we do uppercase, how many letters? That takes them a little bit more processing, but 52, right? I say, oh, great. Now we're going to add numbers to that. How many numbers are there? I don't think I got a consistent right answer on that, as I point out that it's really just 0 to 9, right? So there's 10. So now we go from 52 to 62. And then we add special characters. Let's just call that 10, right? So now we're 70, 72. So we go from having to guess 26 different possibilities to 70 different possibilities, right? That's almost 3 times the key space. And that gets amplified. So now we're doing, instead of doing 26 to the 16th, we're doing 70 to the 16th power. That's way more time required. So that, that's a little bit more, but someone did ask that question and I was able to answer that for them. So good learning opportunity. Then we, coming back to here, we talk about using a password manager, and I talk about what that is, but unfortunately, I think for a lot of kids, that's a little bit outside of their control. I mean, it is an app they would have to install. I don't want to recommend some of the free ones because unless you use the free ones properly, that introduces more security risk. So, mention to them, you talk to the parents and make recommendations to them around password managers. Then we talk about multi-factor authentication. Again, this is something that's hard for them to control, but I did query them and I said, how many of you have had to get a text message with a one-time code that you had to enter in before you could enter site? Many of them raised their hands. I said, that's multi-factor authentication. Now, what I told some of the older kids, the high schoolers, I said, unfortunately, most of your countries use different cellular standards. And yet I can text someone in Finland and they will receive it in milliseconds. So how do I go from my cellular network all the way across the Atlantic Ocean to Finland to that cellular network and deliver a text message and we can actually have texting back and forth? Well, that's the way that happens is there literally is a single international texting exchange where all of the text messages go to be routed to the appropriate carrier. China hacked that system and owned it for 5 years. So for 5 years, all text communications going through that international nexus were seen by China. Now, obviously, China is not targeting most folks in Michigan, right? That's not on their radar. That's not what they're about. But still, all of that is exposed, and whether it's China or Iran or somebody else, right? That exchange is vulnerable, is obviously vulnerable and compromised for 5 years. So texting, by the way, in that same 2016 document, texting is no longer approved for government multi-factor. You shouldn't use it either. That being said, as consumers, as normal civilians that are unlikely to be directly targeted by major threat actors, it is still better than not, right? So if the only option for a site is to use SMS as the two-factor authentication, do it, right? But just be aware there are risks associated with that. And moving to a better multi-factor authentication solution is going to be ideal. Again, something not the kids don't really control, but it is something that you as parents can help them with. Obviously, I have the luxury of being in the industry. So when my kids got a phone when they were like 10, and I said, you get this, but you with these caveats, right? And you have to use this type of security. So I taught them to use multi-factor, and I taught them to use a password manager. And now, as 18 and 21-year-old adults, that's all they know, right? That's how they know to manage all their stuff. So I kind of sent them out into the world fairly well armed to secure their identities, but it's tough. I mean, Dr. Timmis, we could probably spend an entire class just on any one of these topics, but multi-factor authentication alone. How to do it when you're not a company, right? How does an individual do it, and what does that mean? So then we talked a little about VPNs. I would actually like to spend a little bit more time on this. I didn't. For the younger kids, it wasn't appropriate. For the older kids, especially if they're taking laptops to school and things like that, it is important. So I know when my children were at Dexter High School, they would always use a VPN when they were on the school network. Just to protect that machine. So I definitely think the high school kids are ready for that conversation, but how do we enable that, right? And I think that's where we've got to figure out how to engage best there. It is something that you, from a home perspective, can set up, and I'll give some advice on how to do that. So again, what my objective here first is to walk through kind of the content that we covered, and then I have some content for you and questions that I can answer for you as well. It's interesting. I'm on here twice. my second persona. So then we talked about the don'ts. I'm always annoyed when people walk through the slides like this. This one was a good message, right? Don't click on unknown links. This is usually where I say there's a sucker born every minute, and if something is too good to be true, it is. That's the unfortunate reality of the internet. It is, for lack of a better analogy, a county fair full of hawkers that are trying to get you to pay attention to them, right? Just don't do it. Government agencies, companies are not going to contact you out of the blue via texting. So, and the kids even said, yeah, I got a text saying that my FedEx package wasn't delivered and that I should click the link. And I said, that is a fantastic example of how they try and get you. The technique is called smishing, SMS phishing, smishing. And that's it. They just want to get you to click on that unknown link. Now, why is that bad? Well, let's walk you through that. So is that showing? Are you seeing my little hacker video?
Yeah, it shows.
Okay, good. Because I jumped in front. All right. So this is actually a live hack of someone's Gmail. So I'm going to walk you through this. It's a 4-minute video. I'm going to skip around, right? So we're going to start. So down here in the bottom left, this is a hacker tool, but also a cybersecurity tool called Metasploit. This is a program that allows you to take over machines. And what we're doing down here is we've started a listener. So the machine in the bottom left is waiting for someone to connect, and it's just listening. And so what we have here is a Gmail account where someone, a friend sent you an email, say, hey, I found this new game, but you can already see right here, this is suspicious, right? We're already seeing that obviously this is not a real person email. So that's your first clue right there. Second, when we get into it, you can see found this game. Here's this link. Now that link doesn't look great, but if it's coming from a friend and you're a gamer and you're a kid, you want all the funnest games all the time, right? So when we click on that, right, again, you can see the email. When we actually click on that, I'm going to skip ahead here. Yep. So we click on that link, and that's actually going to open up the website. Now, when that happens, when that finally loads, look down here. Takes a moment. And then they're going to click on this game download right here. So they followed the link. They went to my website. And they see, boom, there's the game download. Now, this isn't particularly dressed up nicely. We were just talking about AI before this started. Using AI, you could make this look like a very legitimate gaming site. So now they click on it, download this executable. Great, I got this game. And every gamer has gone through this. So, they get a new game, they run the installer. And when that installer runs, that actually has to go through, there are layers of security within Windows and Mac right here, right? And so we see a bypass that bypassed the security on Windows. And down here, you see, we now actually have a connection. The listener said, boom, session is established. And that's it. Now that game download might even be legit. At this point, that individual could be happily playing whatever game that is. But as we zoom in down here, you can see I'm now able to run commands against this Windows machine. And ultimately, what that's going to allow me to do is I can actually record the mic, record the webcam, add so many commands, get the desktop, enumerate the environment, see if there are any other machines that I can move to, right? And ultimately, we get down here, take a screenshot and pull that up, and we're going to see a screenshot of this desktop. Boom, right? So that's a real-time hack. It literally takes that much time. It is not difficult to do. And that is without even using specialized payloads and all these different advanced hacking techniques that we can do. This is literally just doing open source software, creating a listener, creating this, lure page, and then actually executing that connection. And there's nothing to indicate that this machine has been compromised in that way. And even though we do have antivirus, anti-malware, things like that running on our computers, usually you should, a lot of times, especially in the context of games or software, well, people are expecting the operating system to say, hey, are you sure you want to install this? Do you approve this? And so you're already in that mindset, and yeah, you're going to do it, right? And that's just how easy it is. I'm gonna stop there, see if there are any questions that folks had about why don't click on known links.
Let me see if anybody had any. You could put them in the Q&A, or I think you can raise your hand as a participant.
And then you might be able to allow them to come off mute or something. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna move on. If somebody does have a question, we'll come back to it. So we also talk about unknown networks or outlets. So this is when we talk about hopping on the Starbucks Wi-Fi, and we're at the airport, or we're at a restaurant, and you hop on. And those are unknown networks. You absolutely should not connect to them. I know that's tough, but if you've got, if you've got a kid with you, and they want to, you want to give them some screen time while you're out and about, that's fine. But use your hotspot on your phone. That's a secure connection. Help them use if they have their own phone, help them use their hotspot on their phone. there are so many risks to plugging into a public USB or connecting to a public Wi-Fi. Just don't, as much as you can. If you have to, and this helps both in the unknown links case as well as the unknown network outlets piece, is let's talk about VPNs for a moment, right? So what is a VPN? NordVPN is what I use for me and the family. There are other VPN providers out there. You are going to see free VPN, blah, blah, blah. No, just no. If something is free, then you are the currency. There's no other way to say it, right? Somebody that's offering a free VPN client is going to monetize your privacy in some way. Now, there are a couple of exceptions to this. Unfortunately, there's no good way for me to tell you how to know whether something that's free is legitimately free, as in here's a free beer, or no, this comes with strings attached, right? And VPNs help avoid that. If you're running a VPN like NordVPN, you absolutely can connect to Starbucks. I'm on a VPN right now, because I'm not in my house. So those are opportunities to secure you. I encourage you to go over to NordVPN, read about what is VPN, the benefits. Do you need it? Not everyone needs it, but if you're mobile a lot, then you really should have it. Generally on your phone, you don't need to do it. I mean, if we've got good cellular connection, well, then you really don't need a VPN on your phone for full privacy. But from a security perspective, it can still be good. All right. So looking at VPNs is something I recommend. They have family plans, which is what I have, so that everyone can use it. Now, there is a nonprofit organization called Tor, and this is a private VPN, and it's open source, so it's free. It's free as in beer. You can just get it. You can run the Tor browser. You can just run Tor. It is, because it's open source, that there's not a lot of hand-holding. The other thing I will say is that Tor is the tool of choice for cyber criminals. So they want to use VPNs for privacy as well. So there are many places where use of Tor is simply blocked because of that. On the flip side, Tor, the reason the Tor project was created in the first place was to provide internet access to folks that are in restrictive regimes, right? That have internet blackouts, because Tor basically runs inside of the internet. So positive negative aspects. And we do talk about it. I don't go into VPN detail with kids, but we do talk about computers, the internet, social media. They're tools. And we talk about what are some other examples of tools, right? Fire can burn your house down. Fire can keep you warm. Fire can cook your food. Fire can burn you, right? Fire is a tool. A hammer, same thing. Build a house, tear it down. All of these are tools, and all of these need to be handled responsibly. They are not toys. They're not games. And unfortunately, we have gamified a lot of our computer experience, and it's had some rippling effects. There's some interesting studies going on right now about especially kids, how they're not as willing to push buttons. Now, I'm sure they push in all your buttons, right? But not as willing to push buttons in computing environments for fear of breaking them, right? If they push this button, suddenly the internet will shut off, or I can't play my game anymore. And unfortunately, that's an important aspect of hacker culture, right? As I was growing up with computers, we didn't have extensive manuals. A lot of times we were, if we came across a game, we didn't know how it was played. So how do we figure that out? Push all the buttons. And if we were to describe hacking in a very neutral term, a hacker is someone that makes a system do something it wasn't intended to do. That's it, right? We take an existing system with one intent and we make it do something it wasn't intended to do, right? And that culture is really, really important. It's curiosity. It's important to understand how we can break things, so we don't break them again. But if we broke them, did we break them in an interesting way? Right. The classic example, hacking example of that is what we call a buffer overflow. I cause that program to crash, and when it crashes, I now have control of that box. That's real. That happens. There's actually one of those floating around right now on the internet on a large scale against a particular software package. So these things still exist with us today, and we have to find them out. The good news is that the culture on security has shifted. Like in 2010, there were lawsuits against cybersecurity researchers for demonstrating how we could break software. Now Microsoft is offering $15,000 for any subversion of its AI chat program, right? So you can go out there, your kids could go out there and start trying to make Bing chat do something it wasn't intended to do. And if they're successful and they can repeat it, $15,000. So the entire shift in just under 10 years of creating this inclusive security, bug bounties, all that kind of stuff, it's night and day, right? Companies are no longer suing people into oblivion just because they figured out how to break their program. They're actually paying them, thanking them, and fixing it, which is the culture that we want. And we only get there by pushing all the buttons. So I know the last thing you want to do is turn around and go tell your kids, hey, this cyber guy said, open up the computer and just push everything. I mean, that is what I'm saying, but of course you're in control of that. So fun times. One of the other aspects that we didn't get into, and I'm actually going to bounce back to my presentation. I apologize for switching back and forth, but I really want to emphasize, make sure you guys you folks are taking away something from this as well. Don't share anything you don't want public, right? You put it out there, it's out there. It's out there forever. You don't control it. And I tried to wrap that in a message of share your confidences in person, right? If you want to tell secrets, do that in person. Get FaceTime with the individual. Not just FaceTime like on the iPhone, but actual FaceTime with that person. Don't just leave it up to chat. Use chat for logistics. Use chat for coordinating when you're going to be face to face. But don't live out your relationship in social media. For the high school students, we talked about this, and I still owe Dr. Timmis like a curriculum. There are a number of learning platforms out there that are open to kids that have just fantastic, fully vetted, fully safe content around advanced cybersecurity stuff. And so for the high school kids, I can't emphasize this enough. There are 750,000 cybersecurity vacancies in this country. We will never fill that, ever. Cybersecurity is not easy. It is a tough discipline because it's a capstone discipline. You're taking technology and process and programming and networking and like communications and socialization and putting it all into one umbrella, which means you've got to touch all of those things. You don't have to be a master of them, but you do have to understand their context. You have to understand how they factor into the cybersecurity umbrella so that you know what experts to go and seek. Here's the thing. Cybersecurity is one of the last true meritocracy professions. If you are good, it literally can be just that. You can be good enough and get a job. And it doesn't matter where you picked up those skills. You do not have to go to college. College will benefit you. You saw my bona fides that I did go to college, and I have benefited from that education. My undergraduate degree is in computational linguistics, and my graduate is in business. And that has helped me get to where I am by being able to be that trusted advisor to senior leadership in business and to translate business speak into security and tech and vice versa. Take that security and tech and quantify it and qualify it for the business objectives that an organization might have. And that's tough, right? That's a tough skill to develop. But even without that college education, which will provide benefits, you can do it vocationally. You could take your college tuition, right, and spend it with SANS. Now, SANS actually has an undergrad and a graduate program, so that's one path to walk, period, right? But if you just wanted to do the certs, you can absolutely do that. I think the brilliance of their, and they're a fully accredited university, the same accreditation organization that the University of Michigan gets its accreditation from. The advantage of doing their program is you do get a degree, which some stodgy old companies really want to see, but you get the degree by taking these practical certification tests. Now, those are $8,000 a piece, so they're not cheap. I'm not suggesting that's the only way. And there are some great learning platforms out there, and I'm going to share that. Literally for about $20 a month, you can have access to almost that same caliber of training, but for $20 a month. So if you're a self-starter, you can do this all on your own, and you can do it for cheap. A junior analyst at a traditional company, a junior cybersecurity analyst at a traditional company has a starting salary of around $60,000 to $70,000. If you get in with a cybersecurity company or a company that actually recognizes how difficult it is to recruit cybersecurity talent, your starting salary can be almost double that. And then you're 10 years in, the average cybersecurity professional at 10 years is making more than a doctor or lawyer after 3 years. So they did 7 years of school and then worked for 3 years. At that same 10-year mark, the cybersecurity professional is making more on average. So it's such upscale opportunity, if you know, from a financial perspective, but also very fulfilling. The one thing I will say about cybersecurity, it is incredibly inclusive culture. We've got really good diversity. Our one weakness, honestly, is we don't have enough women in cybersecurity, but we're seeing more and more. And some of the cybersecurity leaders that are out there now are women. At SentinelOne, half of our leadership staff is women, and it's fantastic. So it is for everyone. The opportunities are there, and unfortunately, we don't get enough. We can't transmit enough awareness within our existing high school system to really communicate that opportunity well, and we really should be doing better. So that's part of the reason that I'm here. Like whatever I can do to help people be successful, that's really what I want to see. So definitely look at that. It doesn't have to be all about college. And I know as we've become more aware of individuals' mental health challenges, how they engage, how they learn, how they interact and socialize with people, in my opinion, it is an 80-20 rule. Yeah, 80% of folks out there do kind of fall into a traditional mode, and traditional education is for them. But there's 20% that I think are probably struggling through some of those traditional programs that would really benefit from self-starting, self-focus, right? And then also knowing that when they get a job, they're not being thrust into an uncomfortable culture, right? There is absolute respect for people's individual private time and how they engage, how they socialize, how they communicate. It really is a good industry to be in for folks that are looking for non-traditional careers. So absolutely consider that. Happy to talk about that. I will be putting together some materials and sharing those so we can disseminate them. All right, so I don't really go into all of this just because there's too much, and the kids, without really getting their hands on it, it's not practical. This I wish we could have gotten to. As you can see, we're already 50 minutes in. I'm highlighting what we covered like we're almost out of time. The digital footprint is important, right? And this talks about the trail that you lead, how it can affect the future, and especially a couple of resources right here where you can go and look yourself up. You're probably not going to show up on Shodan. It's an interesting one to put in here, but Google Alerts, ID Panda, Have I Been Owned? Excuse me, Have I Been Pwned? Those are all good sites for finding that out. Then what is responsible social media use? And again, we just didn't have enough time. I think by the time we got to social media, we had maybe 5 minutes for some classes. For 5th and 6th graders, we talked about it maybe for a minute. We just didn't, for all the stuff that they were really engaged with. And in the case of 5th and 6th graders, I only had 20 minutes, maybe 30, depending on where the break fell. Mill Creek, I got a full hour in front of the whole school, which was great. And then the 9th and 10th graders, we basically got 50 minutes. We got one period in there, and that was good. But again, there's just not enough time. What we talk about social media is when we get there, I do emphasize some of the things I already talked about, right? Interpersonal engagement, leverage social media for fun, right? If you want to share a fun picture of that's fine. Just be aware that it's going to be out there forever. So it shouldn't be compromising. It shouldn't be something shared in confidence, right? Just focus on that. The personal thing that I share with them is I say, look, I love taking pictures when I'm on vacation. I never post when I'm on vacation because I don't want people to know where I am at any given time, right? So I'll come back, then I'll post my photos, right? Since I've severed my relationship with Meta, and I do want to emphasize, we might be at the tipping point where we can solve this for the next generation. And that's, the states are suing Meta. Meta also has a case in Europe. X has a case in Europe as well. The EU, the penalties in the EU are 20% of your revenue, or can be up to 20% of your revenue. That's huge, right? Think of the billions of dollars that Meta takes, and now they're going to be fined, let's say, $20 million or $20 billion. That's possible, right? That is going to cause a seismic shift in how they see their responsibility around social media. Right now, it's unfettered, which is the problem, right? And worse, it's unfettered and amplifying the wrong things, right? The algorithm focuses on the things that get the most clicks, which aren't necessarily the things that are true. That's just how the algorithm is designed. That's bad. The only way to not engage with it is to disengage, right? If you are going to stay on, I think I spent about an hour tuning Facebook and got my feed to a reasonable level where it was mostly just my friends and only the friends that I really, really care about. But it wasn't perfect, and it still took me an hour of effort, and I don't know how long it'll last, right? It has to be a systemic change. And so this is something that needs to happen at Meta. It needs to happen at X, Snapchat, any other social media platform like that out there. We're also at the point when you think about this as a business, one of the things that you do in business is you will put something out there, right? The classic, the first one's free. And now we're getting to the point where we're starting to see the platforms start to monetize. They monetize directly rather than selling your privacy, right? They're actually going to charge you, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? Ad-based consumer media, we've lived with for years. I mean, how many of us grew up? You turned on the TV, you had 4 channels, 5 if you were lucky, right? If you didn't have cable, and you watched what was on. And there were advertisements, and you just had to deal with it. And that's how you got it for free, right? You bought a TV, you got TV for free. That's a fair transaction, right? Because they're spending money to produce content. Same thing's happening in social media, but we've gotten very comfortable with what it means to have free access. And so now they're going to start to limit it. And I think Meta's response is going to be, yeah, we're going to have an open tier that's free, but if you pay for it, then you'll have more control over the algorithm. Okay. They'll probably see their subscriber base drop, but some people might engage with it. And that's the only recommendation I can make on social media, unfortunately. If you're on the iPhone, right, you have iMessage, which is actually becoming a better chat and messaging platform than it has in the past, the ability to delete messages, the ability to edit them. But still, right, you still got some of those challenges associated with it. We did talk a little bit about gaming and how to comport ourselves online. And so I asked him, I said, if a stranger were to walk up to you at McDonald's and start asking you questions, would you talk to them? And the kids say, no. I said, well, then don't do it in a game. Right. And if somebody, is using voice chat, and games are getting actually much better at their design. I won't say pretty good, but they're getting better at their design, limiting the ability to interact in certain ways, forcing signs and avatars and things like that, emotes within game to communicate rather than going text chat or even voice chat. And it has had a net positive effect. But I still tell kids, if somebody comes up to you and you're on a platform that has voice chat and somebody's being inappropriate or they're being aggressive with you, just leave. Right? Sign out, sign back in, end up on a different server, that person's gone. Just remove yourself from the situation. There's no way to fight it. And whether it's social media, online posting, in person, there is no zinger or quip or anything that you can say that is actually going to change that person's behavior. So don't try. Just walk away. That's the only thing you can do. And whether that walking away is you hop out of that game and just restart it and end up somewhere else, or you say, I'm done with this game, or I'm done with this social media platform, then that's what you have to do. Right? These are all new inventions. This is all a new paradigm. And as humans, we spent, 50 to 100,000 years evolving with very minimal technology. And then the last 100 years have been crazy. And then the last 10 have just been nuts. There's no human on the planet that knows how to process this. I spent my time doom scrolling and finally broke myself of that habit because I was obsessed with finding more information out, right? You just got to disengage. It's just not worth it, right? Again, logistics. Use it as a logistics tool. Use it to plan things. Let's meet for a movie. Let's go out to dinner. Let's play, whatever. That's fine. I'm not saying break all communication. Just don't live in it, right? And that's what I think a lot of people are doing, right? They're trying to live in it, and that has consequences. All right. So a couple other things I'd just like to say to the parents. I know we're at the top of the hour if you got to drop. As far as password managers go, I recommend Bitwarden. If you scroll down, you can see this is the biggest value right here. Families. For your streaming services, I'm going to tell you what to do. For your streaming services, get an email address set up. Go to Gmail, go to Yahoo. I don't care, right? Call it, harsh apps. Like if I'm using my last name, just some name, just come up with a name. It doesn't matter. Create an email account, and that is the email account that you use for all your streaming services. Then get something like Bitwarden Password Manager and put all of your streaming passwords into a shared folder. So now all your kids, whoever the consumers of your streaming media, whoever you share that with, add them to that vault. They won't see any of your other passwords. They will just see the streaming passwords. Now your kids don't have to come ask you. It will force them. And if they do, you can say, well, we set up Bitwarden on your phone. Go look it up and do it yourself. Maybe walk them through, right? Use it as a teachable moment. And then on top of that, my wife and I, we have a vault. And I have a vault with each one of my kids, right? So my wife and kid number 1 have a shared vault that includes their social security number, a copy of their driver's license. Like, you know, we digitized some of the documents and put it in, as well as key passwords, right? Their college administration password, things like that. Each kid gets one of those vaults. We have a vault for streaming that's shared to everyone. And then my wife and I have a vault. So that way, when my wife changes the bank password or I change the bank password, the next one of us that logs in has it. If you want to look at alternatives, I recommend 1Password. This is another very popular one. There's another one out there called LastPass. I was using them. They're in the penalty box. They had a breach last summer and they did not manage it well. And that's bad. So we moved. So maybe give LastPass another year or two before they clean themselves up. The other thing I want to point out is if you get NordVPN, there are some routers, especially ASUS routers, that have the horsepower to actually do the VPN connection to NordVPN. That way your whole house would actually be fully protected on that VPN. This also, I bring this up because given the direction that things are going, you probably shouldn't use anything that's manufactured in China. It's not that they're actively listening to us right now, but there's a concept of what we call ghost fleeting, which is there could be chips that could be embedded in there that could be activated remotely when needed. We have no evidence of this currently with the products that are in the market. That isn't to say that in the future they're not going to come out. That is also not to say that it was exhaustive, right? Things could have been missed. ASUS is a Taiwanese company. D-Link, Linksys, and Netgear are all American companies. So if you're looking for a Wi-Fi router for your home, I would stick with those 4 companies. If you are really a glutton for punishment and you want to go prosumer, go with this company, UI.com. This is what I use. They have doorbells, but here's the thing. Doorbells, cameras, lights, the whole 9 yards, but none of it's in the cloud. So it's all on these systems. Those of us that live a little bit more remotely, this little device here, you can actually plug in. It's not a full rack. It's a single device. That's a horrible picture. But that little device right there will actually do an automatic failover to your cellular network, which is fantastic. Unfortunately, I live far enough out by Hudson Mills that I have to use Starlink because when the power goes out, all the cell towers go down. So we do the same thing, but we have a Starlink link that we can trigger on backup because I work from home and so does my wife. That's our office, right? That we have to support that. So prosumer, this UI.com, otherwise stick with what's on NordVPN. Nord has vetted all of these. Their cyber team has looked at those. You can trust those devices. And those are fantastic devices for the home. All right. Are we still okay to proceed? I know we're past the hour, but there's one more thing that I wanted to show.
Go for it.
All right, fantastic. So, Google's an interesting entity. They have this advanced protection program. Any Google account can be set up to use the advanced protection program. I do recommend it. However, do know that this takes things up to another level and does involve physical keys. When you get involved with physical keys, if you lose those physical keys, you're just done, right? That's how encryption works. Once stuff is encrypted, if you lose the key, you're gone, right? That data is gone. As an example, there was a crypto enthusiast about 10 years ago that had amassed a bunch of Bitcoin back when Bitcoin was like $1, right? And he had 7,000 Bitcoins on this USB device. He lost the password. Like this was an encrypted device. That device is now worth $235 million, right? And so there's a bounty that anyone that knows how to crack this particular model of device, like he wants to see a proof that it was cracking the model, then he will award them, I think it's 25% of the take of what's on there. I mean, that's how real security is, right? If you encrypt something, it's locked. You might get lucky. Like the encryption might be broken in some way, but outside of that, you can't get to it. So by doing Google's Advanced Protection Program, you do enter into that. They've got a nice little video that walks through how to set it up. It protects you from phishing, can also provide extra protection from downloads, keeps your personal information secure, and doesn't take that long to start, but it does require this little device right here. You can get it from them. Like you just click get started and it'll take you over, and you can buy the Titan security keys from Google. They're $30, which is totally reasonable, but you could also use any FIDO2 device. That's actually what I use. I've got one of those that I use for SentinelOne because that's how important our security is. And notice that they're $30. So they're no cheaper at Google, no cheaper via Amazon. Yubico, fantastic company. We actually use the Yubico. This is my exact key here. So I recommend that, but it's a process. And this is something you're going to have to watch videos, learn, walk through. But if you want to take your security to the next level, you absolutely can do that. Lastly, this is going to be hard for some folks to hear. If you're really serious about security, especially mobile security, Android is not your answer. The realities of Android as an attack surface are such that it's so rife with opportunity for attackers. I just can't recommend it. The only Google devices only Android devices I can recommend are Google branded devices. The Google Pixel, they guarantee 7 years of updates on that device, daily security updates if necessary. There's no cruft, there's no marketing. It's just a Google device. I can recommend that without hesitation. Samsung and LG have less of a good track record because they're motivated to sell you phones, right? That's the unfortunate truth. So they want you to upgrade every 2 to 3 years. So if you have an older phone, chances are it's not going to get updated. And if there's a vulnerability, attackers are going to go after it. And those tend to be the devices that we hand to our kids, right? You update your phone, you give your kid your old phone. Well, now you're handing them basically a malware target. Just don't do it. I know it's tough, but the saying is you get what you pay for. Google and especially Apple have invested billions of dollars in your security to the point where Apple is the only company that allows you to do end-to-end encryption of your data. And I say that just as I literally just discovered the Advanced Protection Program today. This was new to me. Now, based on what I read, this can do the same thing where it does end-to-end encryption to the point where Google can't even get your data, right? If you opt into that program at Apple, Apple can't get it. It doesn't matter how much a government might want Apple to give it to them. They can't get your data, right? So I recommend that. Within your browser, one of the things I wanted to highlight, we're going to go down to settings. Whether it's Chrome or Edge, if you're on Windows, Edge has the same settings. No reason to not use Edge. Edge is a fantastic browser now. It wasn't years ago, but it is a fantastic browser now because it's basically Chrome, right? If we focus on privacy and security, they actually have a little guide, which is fantastic. All of these settings are really, really useful, right? We can get down into how things are configured, when we look at particular ad privacy, things around security, right here, enhanced protection. This is actually going to do anti-phishing. It tells you everything that they're going to do. It sends URLs to safe browsing so that you don't inadvertently go to a bad website. Even if you do inadvertently click on one of those URLs that you shouldn't, right? It will help protect against that. This is a really good setting to have. I can't set it because, well, I have to do things that aren't exactly secure in order to keep my security training up. Then we get down to here. This is one I really like. This is actually a new feature. Chrome supports it. Firefox supports it. Edge supports it. You can come in here, use secure DNS. There's a number of options right here that you can pick. This is a good one right here. This is actually one in my library sessions. I talk about clean browsing. I use it as a backup because I've got some additional layers on top, but clean browsing is a fantastic filter. You can just put that into your browser. That's, you simply just do that, check this box, and away you go. Or you can do custom. If you are really into privacy, I recommend 9.9.9, right? For those of you that don't know what DNS is, it's a phone book, right? Think of a phone book. You look up a name, it tells you the phone number. DNS, you look up a URL like google.com, it tells you the IP address, which is like a phone number. It's 4-digit number, just like that. Or sorry, a 4-octet number to be precise. So 9.9.9.9, that's actually hosted in Switzerland and they don't record anything. So any DNS request, any URL, any website you go to, no one will have a log of that anywhere. So I recommend 9.9.9 for privacy. I recommend clean browsing for security. Cloudflare is also pretty good. Although recently Cloudflare had a vulnerability where other cloud people could attack other Cloudflare people. So that wasn't good, but I think they fixed that. So I recommend that. And lastly, if you want to make those settings, we'll just actually go to clean browsing. This is my favorite because it's so easy to do. This free DNS filtering right here, that's the one you want. You don't have to pay anything. They have 3 levels of filter. So family filter, adult filter, and security filter. So you decide how much you're going to filter. So this is the least amount of filtering. This is the most amount of filtering. And all you got to do is put these 2 addresses into your router. It's outside the scope of this session to walk you through what that looks like. But if you know how to access your Wi-Fi router, there is going to be a place in there where you can specify DNS. And if you put those 2 numbers in there, it'll just filter that stuff out for you. The advantage here is it affects the entire household, right? Anyone that's connected to that. So whether you're on the phone, a video game machine, a laptop, it doesn't matter, right? All your DNS requests have to go through this. I see we have a question. Yes, can keys fail? That's a really good question. So you're talking specifically about these keys. The answer to that question is yes. So actually, if you read through Google, right here, we recommend 2. One is your main key and one is your backup. Where's the backup go? The fire safe, right? So you spend $60, you get 2 keys, you register both, you put one in the fire safe, and then you have one in not your pocket, but you put it on key ring. Sorry, I'm stepping out of frame just to grab mine to show you what I do because they are small. Of course, now I'm not finding it, which has me nervous. I put it in the wrong pocket. That's what I did. Right. So I got this Slava Ukraine. Right. I got this little device here at DEF CON. You might not be able to see it. It's like a little pocket knife thing, but it allows me to store my little YubiKey. So I don't know if this is showing up in the camera very well, but the YubiKey. It is an electronic device. So yeah, you could ruin it. They actually can be washed, is my understanding, but I won't. But by putting it on just like a nice keychain, I keep this in my computer bag. I don't need it all the time, but I do travel, so it has to be with me because I will get prompted probably every other day for it. But again, get 2, store them at home. Since I work for a company that's managing this, I have other ways to register a new one. If one were to fail, you pull the one out of the fire safe, you log in. After you've bought a new replacement, you register the replacement, fire safe one goes back in the fire safe, and now you have a new one, right? You also remove the old one just in case somebody finds it, like if you lost it, that's not great. But there's no PII here, right? This is not going to tell you who it belongs to. There's no way to stick it in and scan it to find out who owns it. So it is purely anonymous. If you lose it, my only concern would be you lose it in a place or it gets stolen by someone who is actively trying to get to it. So yes, they can fail, but that's the backup. And that's the hard truth about all. You need backups on backups on backups, whether it's one-time codes or keys. And I get it. It makes me anxious just talking about the idea of losing access to 25 years worth of stuff. I've been online for a very long time. But yet it's, you know, something we have to manage too. So I think that's it. We've covered a lot. We've gone a little bit over. I would love to do more. If we can figure out a way to maybe break this down into bite-sized chunks. I'm talking to the library route right now saying, hey, how about I do one session a month forever? And each month we'll have one set topic. We'll do passwords and we'll do password managers and we'll do VPNs, right? And it'll be a working session. So folks can come in and bring their laptops and say, hey, I'm trying to get this set up. Can you help me set it up? And I honestly think that's the only way that we're going to tackle this from a community perspective. From a school perspective, it's a bit harder. We just, Dr. Timmis, we just need more time, right? Cyber, I would love to see a cyber class, like one semester. If it has science or math credits, I don't know how you want to work that in, but I mean, there really needs to be time spent almost like home ec used to be. And I really feel that, you know, those of us who grew up in the 70s and 80s, we benefited from the space race, right? Sputnik went up in the 50s, National Science Foundation. All of our curriculums were changed to focus on engineering. This is our Sputnik moment. AI is like, we've got to change how folks are engaging and learning about tech, and to do it in a very practical way, like home ec, right? Not in a theoretical way. We're not talking about teaching kids how to program. We're talking about teaching kids how to actually interact with technology responsibly. I appreciate your attention. I see I've got another question here. Wonder if you can comment on where the average people can work on learning more. A library session would be great. Yes. Yeah. So for that Stay Safe Online, this is really, really good, right? This will cover everything, even talking about artificial intelligence, right? This is a really good resource. Each one of these topics, when we go into online safety basics, actually walks you through all of those steps and walks you through password management and so forth. It's, these are hot links. What does it mean to keep a clean machine, right? And I'm glad I thought of this. I meant to have it ready. Michigan Secure. So state of Michigan actually went out and bought a license for mobile security software for everyone in Michigan. I'm actually running it on my phone right now. It's fantastic. It costs nothing, and this will protect them against phishing links. It will protect them against unsecure Wi-Fi networks because it'll warn you unsafe applications. The core of this software, those of you that have been paying attention to cyber stuff, you may have heard of this thing called Pegasus, right? Which is used to hack journalists' phone, even iPhones. This actually stops Pegasus. So this is really, really high level security. I highly recommend it. Just, search for Michigan Secure, go to the Michigan Gov, and then you click on the appropriate link. All of my kids run it. I run it. Put it on every mobile device, tablet you have, and that will at least give you an extra layer of protection. And you already paid for it, right? Your tax dollars at work. Any last questions?
No, thank you so much for doing this. I'd love to offer a class. We got to find someone that would be certified to teach it.
Yeah, that's the real challenge, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna do my best within the resources I have to see how we can make that happen. If Sentinel-1 has helped make that happen, I'll also talk to SANS, because I know like Pinckney's got a whole program that they stood up.
Yeah, they do. They do, and then Chelsea set up a cybersecurity program. They had a teacher that had an interest in it and learned, which we've been trying to find someone that wants to. I mean, it's a pretty heavy lift.
Well, and that's what I was saying. So what I'm going to go to SANS with is say, hey, can we get, free classes or, you know, extremely discounted on the SANS curriculum, and then just teach them locally, right? If it's something that I could come in and with that material, because it is licensed material, so even though I have access to it, I can't just bring it in. But if they approve it, I could come in and over the summer, like these are 1 week courses, and that would be enough. Like if we got through 2 or 3 of those, that would enable those teachers to be able to do that. And then I will also make myself available for those classes to come in and, you know, do some Q&A with the kids and stuff like that. I just, obviously I can't be there every day.
But I get it. We wish you could. I don't think you'll work for what we pay in schools these days. Love to pay
No,
more.
I think you guys need to be making a lot more. So if I ever get elected, that's coming down for you guys, because yeah, this is the most you and your team are the most important. I look back at the things I had the opportunity to learn, and just even one class at like 11 or 12 years old, I still remember those learnings. So it has shaped who I am, and we definitely want to see that improve moving forward.
Well, thank you so much. I am downloading Michigan Secure as you talk. So
fantastic. And Dr. Timmis, I will send you some stuff so we can get that out, maybe post them on the community website or something like that. However you want to distribute them. But yeah, we'll
appreciate it. Thank you. And thank you everyone that was able to join us. We appreciate it, and we'll try to figure out what we can do again in the future. So thank you.
And tell your friends that next time they actually need to show up.
Yep.
That hopefully this information was useful. So
that's why we had them sign up. The reminders.
Hey, it's in the industry. I'll have like 40 people sign up for a session and only 20 show. So that's pretty typical. All right.
Well, thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too.